Welcome, everybody. It is me. It is the Cyber Warrior. This is Cyber Warrior Studios, and I know you're all here for another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour. Now, with that being said, before I introduce my guest this evening and we get the show kicked off, I do want to say that I am going on a hiatus after this. It's been a rough year for the show. It's been a rough year for Cyber Warrior Studios between two surgeries and everything else going on. I don't know after the football season if this show will come back, but every episode ever produced will be on YouTube on the playlist, and it'll stay there indefinitely until YouTube is no longer around or they decide to cancel playlists. So no matter what happens, all 200 plus episodes will always be there. But otherwise, I will continue to produce mental health content. I've recently started streaming games, and it'll all be under the Cyber Warrior Studios banner. So I hope you continue to stick around, enjoy the shorts and reels and stuff like that for that type of content. But otherwise, I don't know what's going to happen with this show yet. So I've got some time to think about it. But with that being said, we got a short little intro. Give it about 10 seconds, and I promise we'll be right back. And we're back. And one more thing, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, share, all those fun things. Again, even if you're not, even if this show doesn't come back, I'm still going to continue to produce content, continue to preach about mental health, or rather advocate for mental health, men's mental health, things like that. Walk With Me is still here. So, yeah, let people know we're here. Let's make this show a big one and a good one. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guest, Jeff. Jeff, welcome to the show. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing good. I just had a really funny realization as you were doing that intro. I kill things. That sounds bad, maybe. Before getting into cybersecurity, I actually toured and did comedy for a while. And I was the final show at several venues. And so then when you were talking about that, I was like, oh no, have I done it again? Is it me?
No, it has nothing to do with you, Jeff. This has been something going on in my head for the past few weeks. Something I've been thinking about. So we'll see how things go. Like I said, I've got a football season to think about it, and we'll figure it out from there. But with all that being said, we do have an amazing episode planned this evening, an amazing show, and we want to talk about basically legacy IT and rogue IT that's in the environment. But before we do, Jeff, the same thing I ask everybody is kind of what got you into the cybersecurity industry?
Oh, yeah. This is a question that I have an answer for. Definitely. I've thought about this ahead of time, and I was prepared to answer.
Maybe.
Now it's the files are just gone. So I actually have a weird background in IT, and I've been talking about it more lately because I've realized that is something important to share because not everybody comes from like a standard background. But all the way back in like middle school, I was working with file share servers. I was making IRC chat. I was doing Linux stuff. And if you had like taken that as a snapshot, I probably should have gone into IT cybersecurity right away. But for whatever reason, my brain was just like, nah, that's not a real job. So I did every other job. I've done construction, sales, bartending, and barista work. I've been in inventory management, kind of all over the place. And it wasn't until about 6 or 7 years ago when, like you were talking about mental health, I took a break from the thing I was doing because it wasn't going very well mentally. And then while I was on that break, I was like, you know what? Maybe computers are a real job.
Maybe, just maybe.
Yeah, I was not, I love cybersecurity. I've always loved cybersecurity, but even thinking about making money doing it, I was like, this doesn't feel real. And so I did some training. I got an entry-level job as like desktop support. And then my boss died, so I got a promotion to team lead after a couple of months. And then I jumped from there over to a cybersecurity analyst position. And that was kind of what brought me into the whole field, was just a ton of random things that I half believed in. But then as soon as I started doing like active cybersecurity work, I was like, oh, I could have been pursuing this the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, it's really it's one of those fields that Some people find later, some people get into it right away. I kind of came up in IT, so I get it. Like there's so many different avenues to get into. And a lot of people did it as a hobby before they got into it. They were just kind of like, "Oh, this is fun," but for whatever reason they went a different path before they finally found them. But with that being said, I'm sure your boss and well, current boss, the other boss, I don't know. I don't like to speak ill of the dead, so I don't know what his feelings are, but I'm sure your growth and your passion has all shown through, and that you're here. But with this topic being legacy hardware, legacy software, things that are in the environment, this is something I've been passionate about when it comes to critical infrastructure and health and things like that. What have you seen? What do you think? You know, where does that leave us? Like, what's our current situation in your standpoint of all this legacy stuff that's still around?
We're dead. If one thing goes wrong, is how I feel most days when I think about it. Like, not like completely dead, but just like functionally dead. I was going back through my notes of like things, like just stories and things that I've read about and really liked the chaos of it. And one that came up was back in, I think it was 2020 or 2021. Facebook updated their BGP routes and caused a worldwide outage. Like, I don't think about BGP ever.
No, no one does, except for network guys that use BGP.
Yeah, and you get a network guy, and he's like, "Oh, BGP is the best. I love routing protocols. I'm so good at this." And I'm like, "I love that for you, but I will not remember anything you tell me about this." And then Facebook makes some just kind of like, "Oh, we're just going to push an update. It'll be fine." And then everything from the app, their sites, I think even like their internal like badging stopped.
Yeah,
working.
it all went down. They couldn't get it into their offices to fix it. So the network guys got locked out of the data center to basically they had a hardwire into the routers and stuff like that to fix it all, and they couldn't. I forget how long it took, but yeah, I remember that it took some time for them to actually get back in there, and everybody was like, Facebook was hacked. I mean, technically, they were definitely brought down. It was just hacked by their own malfeasance.
It's so funny to even think about how does that work? Because on the global scale, one of the things that I didn't realize until I was looking back at it, they pulled themselves out of DNS rotation. Mm-hmm. Like it wasn't like a routing issue. They broke it, and before that story, I would just assume BGP worked and that was an internet service provider's problem, not mine.
Yeah.
And then one big company tried to do something and they died for a day or so.
Well, the craziest part about it is you think about it at that time, even cloud was like really gaining ground and doing everything. So they effectively killed everything on premise and online because they were still hosting all their data locally. Everything was still local to them. Now, I don't know if it still is. I don't know if they've migrated to the cloud, and even the cloud still has routing protocols and stuff like that you can put your firewalls and I'm sure there's routing in the cloud and stuff like that at some point that you can control. But that, could you imagine even if it was in the cloud and they broke it and it's like, what did we do?
Yeah, and then you can't touch it. I know Meta, they're not going to say they're a monopoly. Definitely not going to say that. But they're like parent company. Maybe pequeño. But they have their own data centers, so they do have cloud, but it's not like cloud like we use. They're just like, yeah, we have cloud because we own giant buildings and we put our own data in the cloud on them.
Yeah. Which, let's be real, the cloud is just somebody else's computer. So Meta has created their own cloud that is their own computers. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I find it interesting when things like that happen because it's stuff that's thought of as legacy is like, but it goes to show that an update can break so much. And for me, I relate legacy hardware and stuff, not so much to corporate business, even though we see it all the time, but more so to our critical infrastructure because of things I've talked about in the past. You've got these companies, and even in government and stuff like that, where they like get contracts and it's like, yeah, we'll give you updates every quarter, da 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 da. And then the company goes out of business and they're afraid to update anymore. And in order to replace that with something new, it's another billion, $2 billion just to change it all. So now they're stuck with this until they decide to reinvest into themselves. And it becomes problematic to where we have Windows XP systems. I think Southwest is still running on like Windows 95 on some systems. So like it is utterly ridiculous. But let's be fair, some of it is no one has it anymore, and it's such a minor operating system at this point. Who's going to try to break into it? Unless you know it's there.
I was doing gig work for a little bit in IT before I got like an official job. So I was doing TaskRabbit, Field Nation, all of those, going out to random sites and replacing routers. And I just saw the comment about Windows 95 probably is more stable than Windows 11.
There's no probably about it. Like, that is a guarantee that Windows 95, Windows 3.1, and MS-DOS were more stable than Windows 10 and 11. And this is just a fact. Like, I don't care. Take it or leave it. It's a fact.
Yeah. And kind of to that same point, like I was mentioning the gig work, they probably won't get mad at me for saying this, but like pretty much everyone has gone to like a Walgreens or CVS in their life, and they have those photo kiosks where you can like plug in your flash drive and print your photos.
I never do that, but yeah.
I wouldn't recommend doing it, because what I found out on one of those gig jobs, when they had me tear that open to replace the computer in it, it was a tower inside of that kiosk that was a Windows 7 computer that had 14 different USB cords plugged into it that went to different printers. So they were like, yeah, tear it out. This was back in a couple years ago, so we were still doing Windows 10 installs. And so they're like, tear it out, put the Windows 10 machine in there, plug everything back in, and let it work. And then we found out they had built a custom application that, just like you said, the company that built that application went out of business. So we couldn't even migrate to Windows 10 because there was no support for the code.
And I'm seeing that even with like web apps. I've seen it, and I've seen it primarily in healthcare and in the financial sector. But there are other sectors that still do this, where they'll build their own homegrown application. And so then you're like, all right, we need to update SQL, or we need to update the operating system. They're like, oh, no. What do you mean, no? Like, you're running SQL 2012. We were in 2025. What do you mean, no? And they're like, well, you see, we have this custom built app that only runs on that database. What? They're like, yeah, it won't convert to the new schema. It'll only run on that one. And you're like, you know what? I'm gonna let Vault Management handle this. I'm out.
Yeah, it is. It makes me think of like coming from like gaming backgrounds. Like if you think of like backwards compatibility for like games specifically, when everybody's always upset, like you get the new console and your old games don't work on it. It's almost like the opposite, where we should be building these with like forward capabilities, so that like if we get to the next thing, and some developers probably going to scream at me, just like a networking guy was probably screaming about when we said BGP was legacy and dead and we hate it.
Right.
But like I'm not a programmer, so I will say that cleanly. I have written code begrudgingly. But the only time, the only time I've ever seen businesses really like get stuck in that Windows Server realm of like 10 years ago is when they're like, yeah, nothing will ever change, so we can write it custom however we want, and do this especially for us, so nobody can have our special program. And I'm an open source person, so I'm like, I don't want my own special program because I'm dumb. I need someone else to be able to see this and help me.
Yeah. Please fork my code, or like give me a pull request or something. Like, yeah, most definitely. And and we're even seeing it to this day with some of your Java apps, and how many companies go out there and they'll build their own intranet or whatever, and they won't be on SharePoint, or they haven't updated SharePoint. So they're like, oh, you still need Internet Explorer for that. And it's like, what about Firefox? No, we didn't build it to run on Fire. All right, what about Google Chrome? No, we didn't do that either. What about Edge? No, you can't. Dude, what are you doing to me?
We actually need you to download the raw HTML files and compile it locally,
Yeah.
and then post your updates that way. I would find that fun as like a hacking thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Edge, Internet Explorer should have died forever ago, and then it did die, and then it undied, which is great.
Because companies still built web apps around it. And so even though Firefox was out, Google Chrome's been out for years. Brave, even though like no company uses Brave, but Brave has been out for years. Safari's been out forever. Like companies were still, and we see it to this day, where companies are so hell-bent on this Microsoft ecosystem that they just build for Microsoft. And when Microsoft updates their browser and changes the way privacy works and things like that, they were like, instead of being like, okay, let's test and then update our code and make sure everything works, they're just like, meh. You know what? If it don't work, hey, download IE7. You'll be all right. Just run IE7. You'll be good. And it's like, why am I going to download a browser for one app? For what?
I'm always of the fan. I'm always of the mind that like, I'm okay with people saying, yeah, I'm all in on Microsoft. I personally won't do that ever. I'll use their stuff when I have to. But like what frustrates me, and it kind of gets into like the plumbing side of it, is like if you're paying for a full like whatever E5 Platinum Plus licensure that you have, and you get everything, and then you have an admin that's like, no, we're going to restrict them down to the core apps and not let them access anything else. I'm like, man, you're paying for it.
Mm-hmm. Whether or not they give the licenses to anybody, they're paying for all the licenses. Allocate them. Like, go ahead, homie. Like, go use Publisher. I don't even know if that's still around, but like, go use friggin' whatever. Like, I don't understand. Like, I understand from a financial aspect of limiting your licenses. And if it's based on allocation and use, cool. But if you're paying for 1,000 E5 licenses that have access to all these apps, give them access. Like, why do I got to fight to get something? No, I can understand third party. I can understand this at the third. Like, you don't want to give anything that could be exploited or anything that provides more risk to your environment that you can prevent. You want to prevent that. But when it's, hey, I want to use, I don't know, what's Microsoft's, their I can't think of it now. Basically, their flow chart and stuff like that. The program they use for that.
Visio?
Yeah. Like if you want to use Visio and you have licenses for it, like you still got to request access to Visio. Like why do I got to request access to an app that you bought that you have all these licenses for? But we still see that to this day.
Yeah, it's like everybody that had their public SharePoint sites, and then when they rolled out Copilot, they're like, oh no, it's the end of the world. Copilot can see all of our stuff because we set it as public. Anyone can see it. And now Copilot, which is a thing in the world, can see it because anyone can see it. And Microsoft didn't notify us 6 months ago multiple times that we need to update our policies. I don't know if you remember that firestorm on LinkedIn. This is probably some people are going to hate me for this, but it was like 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Every single post I was seeing was like, I can't believe Microsoft is letting Copilot read my SharePoint sites. And at first I was like, oh no, they should not be letting that. That is a concern. I have a concern with this. So I looked at it, and this was happening in like June, July. Back in January, Microsoft sent out like multiple memos being like, hey, this is going to be a thing. And now I will caveat with this saying, who reads Microsoft memos?
Nobody.
But we should have that time.
Well, to be fair, it's like most things, right? They send out patch notes and things that are going to happen. I'll read some of them if I feel it's important, but like I expect, and this is the funny part where some people are like, oh my goodness, they're doing this. I'm like, I look at it as, do you expect anything less? Every single AI engine out there is so invasive that it is utterly ridiculous. For instance, I don't know if you saw the recent one. I think it was a talk at Black Hat. They were talking about Siri and Apple's AI engine, which my computer and phone are now going to try to talk to me. Sending your stuff to Apple servers, and they're sending all your information from your phone and from da 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 da. No, no. One, in order for the AI to work, it has to talk to Apple servers to know how to do this. And then on top of that, they were doing like, well, if you ask about certain things or chat, like, why is it sending your location and da 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 da? And it's like, because you're already sharing it with the app, so who cares? Like, it's already if you are so concerned about your privacy, one, you won't have a social media at all. Delete your presence from the internet forever. And two, don't use a smartphone.
Yeah, it is wild. Like, I can't even use a lot of those features. I've tried recently. I always try to keep up on AI reading because I feel strongly about it, is what I'll say. But like, if you even try to use the AI backend to the thing they were talking about, I'm trying to avoid saying the word so my phone doesn't freak out.
Yeah.
Like mine will be like, oh, I need your location services enabled so that I can do that. And I'm like, cool, I'm not going to do that. I guess I'm just going to pull up Google and look at it myself then.
Yeah. Because if you go to check the weather, if you ask for the weather, it has to know your location. So like me, I'm one of those people. I'm like, I say thank you to my AI. So when the robot uprising happens, I ain't scared. They know I'll take care of them. All right. But, for everything else, I just, and I don't care. Like, I care if a company gets breached and they don't react appropriately. They don't respond appropriately. But I was in the military for 13 years. All of my information was held through clearances from the federal government, OPM, and everything else. I have been part of numerous breaches. So, like, if you can't find my information at this point, that's a you problem. I have literally gotten letters in the mail that had, like, the account ID was my social minus the first number. And it was like, hey, you owe X amount of dollars. I was like, dude, I've pulled my credit report numerous times. I don't owe nobody nothing. And my wife was like, oh my God, they know you're like, this is legit. It's your social. I'm like, babe, you realize that every detail of my life up until I left the Army and no longer had a clearance is out there. And now that I'm on social media, it ain't that hard to find me. Like, it's out there.
Yeah, it's almost like twice as bad now, because especially with like the military and stuff. I remember a while back when the 23andMe breach happened.
Oh yeah, I'm in that one.
Well, and everybody was like, how dare you? How could you as an individual give a company your DNA to learn more about you? That's irresponsible. And I'm just like, I had to give my DNA to the government. So like, I'm not going to say I trust private companies more than I trust the government, but I will say that when I worked as an analyst for the government, we found, what was it, like 10 RHEL 2 servers in 2019. So maybe 23andMe is a little bit more secure in that regard.
Well, and again, legacy hardware isn't the problem. It's a problem, but it's not the problem. Because even me, when I look at critical infrastructure, when I look at, and I have been part of risk mitigation and building vulnerability management plans and looking at, I worked for a company and they hadn't patched their servers in probably like 4 years. Because if they were to restart them, they'd lose millions of dollars like every second. So like, I've been parts of this where it's like, we can't update. Like, we legitimately can't afford the downtime. And it's like, I'm sorry, homie, but what's your risk here? And so eventually you build the program, you start getting them to schedule their reboots and things like that when it's very minimal, and eventually they update. But when I think about it, there's still mitigation you could put in place. You can isolate those servers, you can isolate the machines, and so it's not impossible, but you make it harder for an attacker to find them, for them to be able to exploit them and things like that. And some of them don't even need to be on the local network. They're legitimately just there to like print stuff. I've literally worked in buildings where you have an XP machine not on a network, no internet connection, just connected to a printer because it is the only operating system to print this file.
It's so wild. Yeah, and then to the comment from I saw from William come up about those rel servers still working, just like you were saying, that's not the issue. Isn't that it was working, it's that it is still there and that it's vulnerable. But I think if I remember correctly, the problem with those servers was that no one knew they were there. Someone deleted a column out of an Excel spreadsheet, meant to decommission them, never did. And so then when we were doing a vulnerability scan, we were like, hey, there's only supposed to be like 13 servers here, but we're getting reports back from 23 servers. Can someone tell me what's going on here? And it's in like a remote government office in a state that I wasn't physically located in.
Yeah.
And they're like, nah, check your scan. There's only that many. We double checked. And I'm like, nah, man, can you go into the server room and take me a picture? And they're like, yeah, we have 2 server racks. And then they send me a picture with 3 server racks.
All
Lights
3
on all of them. Yeah. And the 3rd server rack, right? And I'm like, okay, those are clearly the ones, just going by the naming scheme. Just unplug them. Like, there's critical vulnerabilities on them. Those cannot be running right now. They're so out of date. As soon as we unplugged them, the next morning we came into a bunch of stuff of people being like, hey, why aren't my reports running?
Oh,
why aren't my things? And I'm like, what do you mean? Why? And so like, we just turned them back on and they're like, oh yeah, our reports are there now. And it was just some old, probably like a cron job or something that was scheduled to run on that machine to take a file, do a thing, and then send it off to somebody.
Well, this goes back to asset management too. So one of the hardest parts and one of the reasons we find legacy hardware, beyond just like, hey, my program won't run on anything else, is people don't know how to do asset management, or it's never been done. So you take a small company that started with 1, 2, 10, 20 employees, now they're up to hundreds, and they don't know what they have because so many people have bought and purchased and added and removed, and so things get lost. And or somebody installed a server that no one knew about, but it was running their entire infrastructure, and they're like, oh, so when you're asking to secure things, you're like, okay, so what's your architecture? What servers are you running? What's your IP scope? Da 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 da. And like, oh yeah, we got all these, and then all of a sudden they get popped, and it's like, I didn't know that server existed, and they're like, neither did we. Therein lies your problem.
Yeah, it's like the pen test asset discovery when it's like, hey, what is the scope for this test? And I'm like, oh, just this one server. I'm like, okay, cool. What's the IP? All right, that's a weird IP. Is that in a subnet that I need to be worried about? Are there other devices? No, it's just that one. And then I scan. Yeah, and then scan. It's like a full subnet. Clients joined in somehow. And I'm like, what is going on here? Then you go in, turns out someone wanted Wi-Fi when there was no Wi-Fi, so they plugged in a like an Asus from home Wi-Fi router by pulling the device or the Ethernet cable out of the back of their workstation and plugging it in. And it's like, man, that guy didn't know.
No, no, because hey, it works. If I plug it in and it works, it works.
Yeah, so he ended up just DHCP giving out all of that subnet, and it's like, then you're in the assessment and you're like, hey, you told me there was only going to be 1 in this network, or like 5, and I have 100. What do you want me to do? And they're like, no, those don't exist. And I'm like, no, they do. They're there.
They're really there.
Here is my mapping these are like Mac to IP host name. I didn't go any deeper than that because I don't want to go to jail accidentally. I'm really big on that. I don't want to see anybody on the news for a dumb reason.
I'm too pretty for jail. So I'm like, you know, if I might end up in jail, I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it.
Yeah, and it's just like they're always like, oh yeah, we'll fix that, and then you go back to rescan, and it's just the few devices you're supposed to have there, and you're like, oh, what'd you do to the rest of them? They weren't there. It's like, what do you mean they weren't there?
Well, in that regard, like, so when you're looking at pen testing, which is huge for finding these types of devices, right? Your legacy devices, you find that a lot of them exist, and companies will be like, hey, you're like, okay, so how many IP addresses or how many assets do you have? And you're like, oh, I got like 500 or 1,000 or whatever the case may be. And they're like, but I only want you to test like these 30. And it's like, well, why only those? Because if you test any others, they'll break.
Or we need you to test these ones because that's what compliance needs.
Yeah. And it's like, if they're going to break, wouldn't you want to escalate that? Like, wouldn't you want that on your report so you can get budgeting and money to fix it? And they're like, no, if they break, we lose money. And then I get fired. And then, so no. And I'm like, but, okay. I mean, you're the client. I'm going to do what you say. Whether I agree or disagree, I'm going to do what you say. But,
yeah, that was a bullet I had to bite back when I first started. Because how I got into like pen testing basically as a security consultant is that I was doing vulnerability assessment on government systems. And so my whole job would be scan, research, recommend. And then 2 weeks later, they'd be like, hey, we don't have budget to fix that. And I'm just like, oh, I just have to live with the fact that there's a struts vulnerability on 1,000 servers right now.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stress for me.
Dude,
like,
it's so bad. So bad. Like, especially when you mention government. Like, when anybody says they do security or IT for the government, I know how bad it's. I was military. I was IT and security in the military. I know how bad it is. And I'm like, I'll wait.
It's like what's the sales term that keeps getting thrown around again? It's military grade. So like it doesn't work? Why are you advertising that this thing doesn't work? Our military grade AI next gen firewall, zero trust CDN is gonna butter your bread for you. And it's just
anybody who's in the military or who has ever been in the military knows military grade does not mean what people think it means. Yeah, because the government takes the lowest bidder. They take the cheapest contract. There's a reason. One, your military gets paid trash. Two, all their equipment is trash. And if you've ever been in a Humvee, you do your PMCS, and then the next week, and it checks out clean. The next week, you haven't driven it. You did a test drive, came back just fine. Go to get in the next week, and now it's broke, like the headlights out, or, something else is busted on it. And you're like, I was just here a week ago. And now all of a sudden, this doesn't work. And they're like, well, we gotta get it into the shop. I'm like, that's military grade for you. It'll break for no reason.
I was never not military myself, but I've always been on like the contractor side and the public sector side.
Yeah.
So when I show up at like even before I got into IT, when I was doing entertainment, working with USF, whatever it was back then, and like I show up with all my gear, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we actually can't do the thing that we were supposed to do because nothing's working." And I was like, "Cool. So do you want me to just pack up and go back through the gate and take 2 hours to get out of here?" And they're like, "Yeah, go ahead and leave." And then I get outside and they're like, "Oh, we found a replacement. Can you come back in?" The system's working now. It just so happens somebody stepped on a cable wrong or whatever, and now it's good again.
Someone put the male into the female instead of. Oh,
It's also funny to see, like, because in my current role right now, I'm a technical trainer. And so I'm working with a lot of veterans who are coming out of tech adjacent roles and trying to get into IT and cyber, which honestly should be the easiest hires. Any company that is overlooking that pool of candidates is ridiculous to me. But like, we'll be talking about encryption, and like I'm prepping them for the Security Plus. And so I'll be talking about just like very basics, like just asymmetric encryption, the idea of it. And they're being like, yeah, but what about like ephemeral keys? And I'm like, no, slow down, man. Don't confuse everybody else.
I hate encryption. Like, that was the one part of like going through my courses in the military and going through Security Plus and every other security course I've taken. They bring up encryption, and I'm like, all right, I'm really gonna have to study for this test if there's a lot of questions, because I hate that. It is the one part of security that I'm just like, look, it works. I'm never gonna develop the algorithms. I'm never gonna, you tell me it's a hash, I know it's one way. You tell me it's encrypted, I know it can be decrypted. That's all I need to know. And they're like, well, there's asymmetric and symmetric, and there's, triple des, and there's this. I don't care. I don't care. Tell me if it is as secure as it can be. No? All right, let's take it up a level. Okay, now it is. All right, cool. Now we're good. Now we're good. That's all
I started throwing around, especially in like the private sector side when helping companies. I would just start throwing around the term best possible encryption, because there's always better and there's always worse. And I'm not good enough at math to explain why. But I do know that because like one of the things, I'm so glad this is done, by the way. If you remember when there was the boom about was it EFTs? No. I can't think. Yeah, EFTs. And everybody was like, oh, we need post-quantum cryptography now to protect our digital assets.
Oh, and I'm like, NFTs.
NFTs. Yeah. And EFT is the money thing. You could tell that I don't have either of those.
I don't understand crypto at all. And when they went to NFTs and they were like, oh yeah, I'm going to create this art and it is this. And I'm like, wait, so you're blockchain, digital art, download, rip everything out and modify, and now it's mine. Like, I don't need to pay for it. Like, I could literally just doink.
Oh yeah, they were just paying for a fancy hash that was attached to it in the metadata. And so like, again, going back to like abandoned tech, blockchain, we should have never moved on. Blockchain is so cool. I explain it that like blockchain is like a vending machine, right?
Yeah.
So like you can do so much stuff with vending machines. If you've ever been to like any city that's big, I'm currently living in Kansas City, so I don't understand what like luxury is. But if you're in a nice city, sorry to anybody that's listening.
I'm from Pittsburgh, so I get it. Okay. I get it. Like
I did like Pittsburgh's cool. It's Steel City, right? Because all the bridges and the towers, and then the fact that my car got broken into the one night I stayed there. That's why it's really called Steel City. For anybody not from the area, I was in Pittsburgh for I think 12 hours to do a show, and I got burgled. But
that tracks. You're that makes sense.
But yeah,
why I'm not in the city anymore. I'm in the suburbs now. But yeah, that definitely tracks.
And yes, blockchain vending machines. So like vending machines are really cool. If you've ever seen like a tech vending machine where you can get like laptops, anything like that, Carvana is a car vending machine.
Yep.
That is so cool. But most of what we use vending machines for is snacks and energy drinks.
Hey, don't knock my energy drinks.
I won't.
Monster go way back.
I won't knock them, but like that's what we're using this technology for. And then like to translate that back to like blockchain, it's like we could do so much. We could do like land rights management. We could do asynchronous verified voting things. And instead we're doing cryptocurrency for crime and NFTs. Like,
and let's be fair, crypto isn't just for crime, but it is used a lot for crime. And the funny part about that is people think it's untraceable without realizing that Bitcoin is now government basically owned, and they can track everything you do with Bitcoin. So I
Yeah,
hope you're using one of those, cheaper coins that don't get tracked as well.
Yeah, if anybody's listening in and you haven't already decided to hate me, 100% all cryptocurrency is traceable, even if you're using a double blind like Monero, which is a crime coin in my opinion. Like, even if you're going all of that, it's still tied to you. It's just paperwork that someone's going to have to fill out.
Like, and let's be fair, at least in the US, I don't know about other countries, but in the US, to withdraw your coin as liquid currency, as cash, you need your social or somebody's social. So somebody's getting in trouble for it regardless. A name, a birth date, like I-9 type information, W-4 information, all to withdraw that into a bank account. So you really got to go above and beyond to hide yourself, because all of these apps now are like, hey, if you want that Bitcoin money that you just made 100 grand on, well, it's going to be taxable. So we need all your tax information.
Yeah. And then
you're like,
oh,
but I didn't want to. It's supposed to be anonymous.
Back in like when the tax law was still getting figured out and banks were being super careful, is what I'll say. They were being super careful because I don't want to upset banks because they have money and I don't. That's the main reason I don't like upsetting people, is because most people have more money than me because I'm bad with money. But like, they were being super careful. I know a couple of people that had this happen where they made a bunch of money on crypto. And by a bunch of money, I don't mean like Bitcoin millionaires or anything like that. But when they withdrew it through their bank, they couldn't provide tax statements from the IRS because those didn't exist.
Yeah.
So the bank gave them the money and then closed their account for tax fraud.
Oh, man.
So they're like, yeah, here's your money, never come back. And so now you have to do, what is it, short-term capital gains? Or I've read way too much about this for not having any of it at this point. But yeah, there's just so much where it's like, again, kind of getting back into like the abandoned ideals that we've been talking about, where it's like, this is uncharted water. We have some infrastructure and we don't know who's going to get mad at us or what's going to break. So we'll just not do anything, I guess.
We're just not going to support it, or we'll support it and like hope nothing goes bad. Like, it gets so, and my camera's like auto zooming like crazy right now. But it gets so weird and finicky. But when I think about the legacy tech, though, when I think about everything that we're dealing with in this industry, it blows my mind. And a lot of it comes from the fact of, you've got some organizations that always need to be on the cutting edge. So they will never allow an operating system to go past a quarter out of date. But then you got others that are like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They're like, you need to patch your shit. And they're like, but do I? Like, do I really? It's like, homie, you're on MS-DOS. And they're like, yeah, but it still works. So why do I need to update it? Like, look at your banks that were running Cobalt code. I think some of them probably still are. And it's like, no one, who knows that code anymore? Like, how do you update your shit? And they're like, we don't.
Who was it? Google recently was like 30% of our code base is written by AI. So we're gonna not hire more junior devs. And then their head of cloud was like, where are we gonna get senior devs from then?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that guy has a brain. And like the first comment I saw on that interview was like, oh, this guy's gonna get fired. He's making too much sense.
Oh, dude, that's like half of the what do they call it? Like Facebook, Google, and like those big companies. I forget what they call them. And I just don't. It's like, as soon as someone like logically thinks, they're like, oh, we can't have that here. Nah, you're fired. And it's like, for what? You're smarter than me. I can't have that. You're fired. And it's like, but why? Like, I think a lot of this legacy tech gets held on to for the same reason we have a lot of the security issues in our and culture issues and things like that within our companies, is that you've got old heads that are, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old running things that haven't touched a computer except to check their email in probably 30 years. And they're like, "Oh no, it's always worked this way, so we're going to keep doing it this way." And you're like, "But that's not the right way. I don't care, you're fired. You don't agree with me, you're fired." And it's like, okay. And like, it's companies like that I'm like, then let them burn. Let them burn. If that's how you're going to treat people, let them burn. And I think we have in this industry and in this, at least in the US, a lot of problems with older generations still running things and not listening to the younger generations that are seeing what's coming up. And me, I rely on the younger generations. I rely on, like, they're like, "Oh yeah, AI can do that, da, 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 da." And I'm like, "Cool, you do that." Because I'm
Yeah, I'm all right with the AI overlords, and like us using tools to do better, and like relying on people is great. But it's almost like there's a specific group of, and this is super true for security, that I ran into it, especially in government side, where like there are people who are really important that like being important.
yeah.
And if anything goes counter to that, that's the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
But which sucks for security. And then you get into like a change review board, and you're explaining what an IP address is for 45 minutes because you have to change one on the firewall. And you're talking to a 30-year Army telecommunications vet, and who only really understands the signals going back and forth, not the numbers, because he's been so like detracted from it.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't want to blame that guy. That's not his job. He shouldn't have to care about that. But also, we got to know what IP addresses are. So if you
don't hate on the Army. I come from the Army, sir. Do not hate on us. But at the same time, I know exactly what you're talking about because I know NCOs in the Army that would be that way. So I feel you.
I think the tech and like the humanization, the human element, words are hard sometimes. The human element of it is super important. And that's how I can kind of tell personally when an AI company, when I'm okay with them. If an AI company has human element involved, I'm cool with it. If it's an AI company to remove the human element, I'm like, this can die. This is probably going to crash in a minute.
And I think when it comes to our legacy tech, that's a big thing, right? And I think that's why I still hold on to it, right? Like I'm a very slow. I will update my operating systems. I will update anything locally that I am touching and I can feel, and it's right in front of me. But I am very slow to do anything that is outside of my control. So cloud is outside of my control. So for me, I've worked at companies. One of the best companies I've ever worked for. Before I left, they are cloud native. They are cloud first. They are open source. They are, all these things, and I respect that about them, and I love that about them. But that's not me. And so for me, I learned the cloud because I had to, not because I wanted to. Because like I said, it's somebody else's computer. Give me legacy all day. Give me data centers where I can go there, touch the computers and the servers and actually do the work and update them and patch them. Don't sit there and tell me, hey, you're going to start a virtual. Actually, we're going to start 30 virtual servers. They'll scale up and down. So it might go up to 1,000. We don't know. It depends on what we got coming in. And I'm like, I just can't get behind that from a standpoint of, oh yeah, if I ever started a company, this is what I'm doing. Like, no, if I start a company, it's going to be, I got my computer. I might have Gmail, like, cool. Like I'll buy a Gmail workspace, but I'm not, I just won't, I can't do that personally.
Well, I'm trying to remember who mentioned it. It was someone in our space, in that cybersecurity space. They mentioned that like we need people for roles.
Mhm.
Like everyone has a different space in IT and cybersecurity. So like I should exist in my space.
Right.
You're mentioning you love like the infrastructure, the critical ins, that legacy stuff. You have to be there because no one can tell us how much legacy critical infrastructure is holding up the cloud right now.
Yeah.
Like I know Meta's going out and they're building, like they just built a new data center in North Kansas City, so I've been seeing a lot about that. But like there are routers on poles in the Midwest that haven't been touched in 30 years, and that's why another reason why we in the US can't use IPv6 reliably.
They've been saying we're going to run out of IPv4 addresses for at least 20 years, if not longer. I think since like the mid 90s, they've been saying this shit. So we're like at 30 years now. And somehow we still have IPv4 going and running strong globally. So I don't know. Are we going to run out? Maybe.
I did find out an interesting that ties into like the abandoned side of it. A bunch of companies bought huge blocks of IPv4 addresses to hold on to them because they thought we were going to run out and it was going to be worth a bunch of money. And then over the last like 20 years, they've been reselling them, which is why we're seeing a lot of like LinkedIn ad space being used for, do you want to lease IP addresses and sell IP addresses to your friends? It's like it's the new timeshare, is just selling IP addresses. No one gets to use it, but you get $5 and your friend gets charged 500.
Pyramid schemes. It's fucking amazing. Multi-level marketing. There you go. IPv4, the new MLM for the tech space. I mean, it is though, because they did, and actually that's part of the reason that they were saying we were going to run out, is because these companies were going out there purchasing these global blocks, or your public blocked IP addresses, and then they were like, I don't need all these, but I'm paying for them because you got to pay to hold them. And like, I only need like 3 of these to make my company work, but I got 500. What am I gonna do?
And then you try and sell them back.
Yeah. Like, get rid of your contracts for them. Like, hey, have them. I don't want them anymore. See you later.
Can I sell these back to you? No, but you can give them back to me. I'm not going to give you money for anything. You shouldn't have given me money for that. But it kind of ties back to something I was trying to hit on with, like, especially because I know we made fun of the old heads. I'm going to briefly make fun of the new generation as well.
Yes.
Because I think there shouldn't be any ageism in IT. I do think that everyone has a place.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But one thing that specifically younger, so I won't say, I'll target myself at the high end. So like millennials to Gen Z are the folks. We assume that things like the internet just work. Like we assume that all of this stuff is just gonna keep going. And like what we have now is the best, and anything before now is garbage. Or
even though I came up on dial-up and AOL and Prodigy and Netscape Navigator.
And what we forgot is it worked. And that was, someone had to come up with that.
Yeah.
Like cookies. I was researching cookies recently. Someone had to make cookies. And so like when you get into specifically that headspace of like, how could anyone ever do this? Why would these companies ever think that we'll run out of IP addresses? We also got to kind of remember that back then people were like, nah, a building will only have one computer in it.
And it'll be the size of my entire basement down here, if not bigger.
And I did a count before this because I was like, this is probably going to come up at some point if we're talking about antiquated tech. I have a Frankenstein's gallery of laptops and like home lab around me, like specifically like down there in my shelving. I think I got like 15 or 16 laptops, 2 mini PCs. I've got the actual laptop I'm using. I've got 2 different smart room boards. So like the things that you can like reserve a room on. It's like basically a tablet. I have 5 Android tablets that I've been playing with to figure out how you can hack those. And I've got 2 old phones that are both Huawei phones because I bought them because they were like, oh, the Chinese are spying on us. I'm like, yeah, I want to find out how. Turns out it's the same way that the regular phone companies are spying on us. But like, just that idea of like, if we stayed in just public IP space, like they thought we would have ran out because I would be eating up 45 IP addresses by myself right now.
I used to. I got rid of a ton. I used to have a ton of legacy hardware, and I ended up taking them to a computer shop. I was like, yo, part these. I don't want them. I'm out, homie. I ain't doing this no more. Like, I did not want to be messing around with old hardware anymore. So yeah, I feel in that one. Like, and a lot of us do. A lot of us in IT and cybersecurity. Now, phones I still have, for emergency purposes of like, I need to boot up an old phone and throw a SIM card into it. But that's it. But with that being said, we got about 5 minutes left. So this is what I want, Jeff. Yeah. I want you to give the best advice you can to companies, people, anything you want to get off your chest. I'm a give you the screen. You've got the time, and I'll come back in a minute, and we'll follow up on it.
All right. So turn stuff off. Be okay with turning stuff off. Not everything has to run always. You do not need 100% uptime, even if you are a critical financial institution. That is what backups, load balancers, scalability, all that fancy stuff we talk about in the cloud. If you are relying on one server or one cluster of servers and they have to be up constantly for it to work, and you'll lose money like we've been talking about if they go down at any point, turn it off. Right? Spin up a second one, just straight back up, do your proper maintenance, Windows, patch management, all of that. But there are so many servers out there that should just get their power cord plugged. For anyone listening, if you haven't heard of Shodan, it's a search engine for Internet of Things. And before this call, I did a Shodan search and I found 300 plus FTP servers within about a 50-mile radius of where I'm geographically located that were running a vulnerable version and allowing anonymous logon. So unplug those servers. If they're critical, back them up, have some failover, and then unplug them. But we hold on to tech way too hard. And that's I think that would be my big point that I'd want everybody to take home. Because so much of this infrastructure is just, God, it's got to die.
The FTP servers get me. FTP, RDP, like, I see this to this day. The cameras, prior to securing cameras, like the open webcams that were just out there. Like, hey, I have this camera to watch my fish or my kennel or whatever. And you'd go on Shodan and find thousands of them. And you're like, what do you mean they're open connections? And you go, and it would either take you straight to the camera or have the default like admin password or admin login. And you're like, why is that on the internet?
Yeah, the craziest one that I've found recently is like the connection bridges. So if you have a bunch of IP cameras at home, and even if you've secured your IP cameras, if you have a web GUI that connects them all together, you also have to secure that. And so like I was showing someone it and I was like, I just pulled up a bridge, like a Docker bridge for those cameras. And the cameras themselves you couldn't talk to. But if you looked at the bridge, you saw the feeds of all the cameras.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen them. Shodan is huge for that. And again, Internet of Things, you'll still go on Shodan. Again, anybody in cybersecurity that has not been on Shodan and just did a search for like operating systems, you will find Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 10, RHEL 2, like Ubuntu, whatever. Like, you will find these old operating systems out there. And again, some of it's public, some of it's private sector, but it still exists. RDP still out there. Companies haven't turned it off or don't know how. But this will be kind of my final comment on the topic, and then I want to touch on one more thing that's not legacy hardware. Companies don't know what they don't know. And at the end of the day, sometimes they get overruled. Security gets overruled. CFOs, CROs, CEOs, fire IT staff, fire security. We're always an expense in their eyes because we don't know how to advocate for ourselves on how we benefit the company. And so you end up with companies that get breached because they only had 3 IT and security people doing the same job, right? Same 3 people doing the IT and security. And so then they go out there and hire, and then you're like, oh, well, you have all this. Well, why do we have that? Let's fire them because they allowed it. No, you told them no. And so one of the things I will say for any CISO, for any security director, senior director, VP of security, whatever position you want to ask for, make sure if you find vulnerabilities and you know it needs patched and it's going to take money to patch it or update it or replace it or whatever the case may be. FTP servers are a huge one. RDP is another big one because it's running that. Get the sign off on from your CEO that you're not allowed to replace it, or your CFO or whoever's telling you no. Get that sign off from them. They now own the problem and the risk. You don't. Because if you're owning that risk, that means you were willing to take on that burden and the risk of being fired when that's the reason you get broken into. Plain and simple. But with that being said, Eggy, I never know how to pronounce your name, my guy, but yes, RFC 1918 did come about to hide, to give us more IP address space to use. Absolutely. Keeps the externally facing IPs down. Or after football, I always learn stuff. Cloud 2, my guy, we'll see how things go, man. I'm always available though, for anything. I'm on all social media platforms. Cyber Warrior Studios is everywhere. There's always a way to reach me. Feel free to reach out. Again, honestly, it's become financially, it's just harder for me to do this show. I don't make any money from it. It's all been for everybody else. And after 5 years, many episodes, it's up in the air what happens after football season. So we'll see. But I don't know. Depends on how everybody else acts. Like if I just get 5-10 people to like, hey, come back. That's 5 or 10 people out of 5,000 plus subscribers on YouTube. It's 5 or 10 people out of 2,000 plus subscribers on Instagram. I used to be able to be okay with that, but financially, it's just not. Time is money, and I got 5 kids. So if I'm not making money, I'm losing time with my family. So, but I will continue to do mental health stuff. I will continue to stream games. There's always going to be ways to find me. I'll be on TikTok. Until that goes away, if ever. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Discord. Yes, you can reach me on Discord. My notifications may be off, but at least once a day or every other day, I try to check Discord to make sure I don't miss much. So I have a Discord server. If that becomes more active and people talk on my Discord server, I will be there. I will show up more often. But until that becomes more active, it's not. I check it every so often. But that's there. So there's always going to be a way to reach me if you need to. Well, with that being said, it is after 8 o'clock. It is after 2000. Jeff, I want to thank you. If this is my last ever Security Happy Hour episode, it is not your fault. It may seem like a coincidence, but it is not your fault. I absolutely love this conversation. I loved what we talked about. I think legacy hardware and things like that are huge and something we need to address within the industry, most especially within government and critical infrastructure, because it's almost like security through obscurity. It doesn't work, and usually if those get hit, everything goes down within that company or that sector. So it is something to be watched out for. But with that being said, please, if you are not on YouTube, go to the YouTube description after the fact. Check the bio or the description. Look up Jeff's LinkedIn information. It is also on LinkedIn. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn, you can connect with Jeff there. Reach out to him. Reach out to myself. We're always available. And any guest that has ever been on this show, all of them, please reach out to them. Again, 200 and some plus episodes. Some of the guests have been here multiple times. I love you all. I appreciate everything you have given to me. And I hope that I have been able to give back to you with the guests that have been on here. Mentally, this has been a huge break for me, and I absolutely love what I've done here. But until next time, or until I see you again, catch you in cyberspace. You're all my warriors. You're all my family. And I'll talk to you later.